I am the terror that flaps in the night. I am the CEO that makes terrible decisions. I am Chris Cox.
Nope, I give up.
It's the original Aeon Pro.
Oh, really?
It's the front.
Wow.
It is right in the front of the magwell area. It has this little like texture, and that's what I did to fill that, because that was a gap, because that was where the jam door used to be. This is actually part of the magwell from the Mirage. That's actually enclosed by the grip. But I broke it out, flipped it, and then covered the opening for where the jam door used to be on the Mirage.
That works. Yeah.
That's part of the Mirage, where the sling loop you use on the front. That's where the screw post is for the sling loop. So, yeah, lot of usage of parts where I can get them.
All right. Yeah, Vile does that. Vile rolls like that. When's Merge Masters due this year?
The end of April. So April 31st? Is that the last day in April? 30th? I can't remember. It's the last day of April.
30 days, half September, April, June, and 30.
Yeah, okay. So April 30th.
You got another month.
11:59, April 30th or whatever. And then May is when they're going to be doing the voting. So the whole month of May, they'll be allowing people to vote on the builds.
Right. Okay, I have to admit that as much as I'm very cold out here, I can see how much sound the heater is putting in my audio thing. It drives me nuts trying to edit it later. So,
More blankets. More blankets.
My noise floor is still pretty high, but I think that's just reality.
Is
right
it
before
coming out of
recording
your microphone? Because it sounds like you're getting audio.
So here's the first thing. Last episode, my preamp that I've used for my mic for years died. Like, literally, I came upstairs. It was like this week where I was like running here from work. Hello and welcome to episode 52 of the Foam News Collective podcast. We're already recording and we're still chatting, so I think we're just going to include this in the episode. I'm KT, and here with Kyle. No Grims yet. Grims might jump in later. We have a fabulous guest, Buffdaddy Nerf. Many of y'all know. Mark. Really glad to have you on. Yes, this week is a lot like last week because I'm like rushing here from work. I'm doing all this theater work right now, and I'm working at a theater that I have to like drive an hour to get here from. And the weather's been warming up, but today of all days decided to be not like the coldest day, but cold enough that like, because I haven't been home heating my garage all day, it's cold out here. And luckily I have a cat sitting on my lap who unfortunately I think is just out of frame. But he's holding down one of my hands, so I got to run this podcast with one hand behind my back. But I think we'll be okay.
You poor man.
Yeah, what am I gonna do? But last episode I like dashed in from work and started all my gear up, and my mic preamp that I've used for years just does not turn on. And so I was scrambling around, like, I'm an audio tech. I have a bunch of stuff, but I had to like go through a bunch of options, and so I'm using this like kind of nice mic preamp, but it's definitely like an artsy like music preamp that like has a pretty high noise floor because the focus isn't on being like the cleanest recording. So nobody seemed to care or notice. So I could have said nothing and no one would know, I guess, but I chose not to say nothing. Vile, how are you doing?
Good.
How's your fortnight been?
It's been busy. It feels like I've been getting. Actually, one of the things I brought up recently was trying to make more progress, and I was building the storage out in the garage. Actually, so I've been making some progress on that. Although I did have a random, dentist appointment I wasn't expecting because I had a filling break off, and I had to go get that redone this week. Which, again, fun. Just didn't expect that. Yeah. But yeah, other than that, not too bad.
Hell yeah. Well, so, Buffdaddy, welcome on. Great to have you here.
Great to be here. We'll see what happens.
I know you've been doing a little bit of traveling, a little bit of putzing around lately. which is a big part of why we wanted to have you on this particular week. But before we kind of dig into that, I would like to hear you tell the folks a little bit about who you are for the odd random person who, as we often say, the person who is listening to this podcast who doesn't already know who you are, which seems like a Venn diagram where the circles it's just a circle. But
yeah.
I know BlasterHub goes back 2013. Blaster Lab was part of that before that. Your blog goes back at least that far.
2011 or so was probably. Might been 2011 sounds like a safe number to go with. Yeah.
Fair enough. You also are a member of a team. You play competitively.
Yes, competitively with a bunch of Canadians and, well, adopted Canadians.
Whoever's feeling Canadian enough to fill the last couple slots on the team.
Absolutely, yeah.
And also known for being the first person to make a flywheel cage for pretty much any new off-the-shelf blaster, it seems like.
It depends when I have the time, but I mean, usually if it's something that's on shelf relatively recently and I have the budget to actually grab it, I end up spending an evening with my calipers just measuring everything and throwing something online so other people can use it and start stuffing motors and everything.
Is that just like a passion project? Do you get like excited to do that, or do you feel like obligated to do it?
Mainly excited.
All right.
It's kind of letting my brain go like completely ADHD on one thing for a few hours and just have it out and then just, nice therapy for the rest of the week, I guess.
Yeah. Well, I know a lot of people are very thankful for that work. So thank you for all of your contributions to the hobby. Why have you stuck with the blog format longer than I think a lot of content creators, particularly in this hobby? Why is that? Why you make some video content, but you've never been the focus of what you do.
Oh, absolutely. I've always treated like YouTube as kind of a repository for, if you want to actually see the stuff I'm writing about, click here, or war footage, or if I occasionally want to do a short because I'm messing around and feel like it, or the dog's doing something cute,
Yeah.
It's there, but I got into the hobby when everything was still forum-based, so it's partly inertia, and also it's partly I can, write about it, communicate everything, and still do everything in a timely manner and enjoy it, where I've always been afraid trying to shift to video or some other format, it's going to turn into enough work that it feels more like a job than a hobby I enjoy.
Yeah.
I mean, granted, my wife is always urging me you should actually try more things, and at some point I will have to take her up on that offer, but I've just had a lot more passion for writing than trying to put in the work on videos.
Right. One of the things I really appreciate about a lot of your content is that it is complete and informative and knowledgeable, but it's also like personal enough that it's fun to like follow your story and your opinions. I feel like you have a really good balance of that. And
I mean,
your wife's part of that. Like, she's really funny in a lot of your content, and like
she gets to test things on me all the time.
Yeah.
There's always that, and there's always just I like playing. I like using things. These are toys. I want to use them before I review them, ideally.
Right.
Because more than likely, if you throw it through a few rounds at a war, then you'll at least you're at least likely to find something that could be wrong with it, or something that surprises you that you're like, oh, this is way cooler than I expected, you know?
Totally. Yeah, that hands-on time is so vital. How do you, I know that BlasterHub in particular, like, you're really just posting on BlasterHub now.
At this point, yeah.
The website has other team members listed. Is it just you now though, or
at this point it's me? It's just me now. I own the website. I'm the only one writing for it. It has a couple stuff on there legacy wise of people that did have it in the past, and I've just kind of left that there in general.
Yeah.
But at this point, it's just me since 20. I know I have a date somewhere. It's like at some point I wrote down when I started doing it. I think it was 2018 or 2019, but it was around that point where it was just me writing. I just messaged, hey, can I buy the website and just do it? And then it was all me after that. And with maybe an occasional article from a friend here or there on something like Brain, that one of the guys you would know from 5 Minute Respawn. Hey, Grims is here.
Yay, yes. We have Grims.
But yeah, Brain from 5 Minute Respawn has written a couple things here and there, like when he was playing around with building a rival burn or some other odd thing here and there. But other than the very rare article here or there, it's just me.
How would you describe your approach to, because you have a mix of so many different things on there?
Yeah, it gets harder to maintain a solid approach because there is so much of everything out there.
Yeah.
I aim for, because the thing in my mind is, if you're just looking for a website and you're typing in the name of the blaster in the aisle of Walmart, the BlasterHub's always had really good search engine optimization. So if you're looking for just a link to look at, it's going to pop up there.
Right.
So it's aiming for general consumer while acknowledging that other things like being a hobbyist or tearing blasters apart to mod them exists.
Well, because I've always really appreciated the level of attention you give to some of the more like businessy, esoteric stories and like patent news and like legal stuff.
Yeah, yes. So, I mean, some of that is purely me because I find it interesting how everything twists and turns. Because something blinked. Oh well. Anyway, the extra things like that I've just found interesting on a me basis, so it's gotten thrown in because why not?
Fair enough. Hi Grims, how are you?
Hello. Some technical difficulties later, and we are here.
Yay!
A lot of technical difficulties, but we are here.
Good to have the whole team. There's like infinite things to talk to you about. I want to dig into some recent news stuff with you later on this evening. But the main reason we called upon you this particular time is because you were at Toy Fair this year, as you often
I was?
Whoa.
Well, it must be my evil twin that you're thinking about, the one with a lot more facial hair, you know.
I'm sure. And you go there like on a press credential from BlasterHub, right?
BlasterHub still gets enough hits. It's hits plus the like site retention, all that. That whole combo of things that they look at, because if you can spam a site enough, of course you're going to get enough hits. To
that end, because I think a decent portion of our audience doesn't like truly understand this yet. Can you kind of describe like what Toy Fair actually like? What is it like going to an industry show like this? What is the actual purpose of Toy Fair?
Yeah, the actual purpose of Toy Fair is connecting people who make the toys with people who sell the toys.
Right.
So you have all of your different toy companies, could be run from Hasbro to Lego to any number of small companies, depends how much floor space they want to rent out in the Javits Center in New York City. And then they are holding meetings with all the different retailers that are going through, whether it's someone big like Walmart or Target, something mid-sized like your local sporting goods or farm and fleet shop, or it could be something that's very hobby-sized, because, I mean, someone like, say, Containment Crew would definitely qualify as a retailer for getting a pass to going to Toy Fair. And, you know, Charles does show up at Toy Fair.
Yeah, I saw pictures of him at the Dart Zone booth.
But it's that is the main purpose overall. It's not open to the public. It's for industry. And then as an addition, because as far as they're concerned, getting our stuff on the news is always a good thing. They have press passes, whether it's someone from Good Morning America or a TikTok influencer or various blogs. There's a whole, when you apply for the pass, there's a whole slew of categories that you could technically qualify under, each with its different requirements they have to submit proof for to actually get a press pass.
Yeah. I mean, it's such a big, sort of wide-reaching event with so many different things there.
There's toys of every kind, and it's always stuff of, obviously they have their current items, but they're also pitching what they want to bring to the market for the summer / upcoming holiday, because that is the major toy season. So even if they don't have the things on hand, chances are, if you are a toy company that's been at this for a while, you have drawings somewhere that you can show Walmart or Target of, look here, this is what we want to put for your Adventure Force line in the fall. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. You know.
Are like what? Because you have pretty wide coverage of like our hobby and tangential things and related things. How much of Toy Fair? Like, do you kind of walk through until something catches your eye that's relevant, or like, are you checking out a wide variety of things when you're there? How much do you see that's actually like relevant?
I mean, to us? You find a decent number of things. I mean, you most of the time ahead of time, because you know we have contact emails for a lot of companies, so I at least know where Dart Zone's gonna be in time to roughly go there and see them, because like, they were busy the first few hours between meetings and doing the Instagram reels and doing other things. And then Hasbro always has stuff scheduled. But usually my first 2 hours are just wandering up and down every aisle, seeing what there is. Because, I mean, you obviously have I shouldn't say obviously, because the people listening don't go to Toy Fair. You have the info available to you if you're going to Toy Fair. There's an app, or you can either look at the website and you can look through what all the exhibitors are. But it's not necessarily a list that screams out, "Hey, we make blasters." So I find it a lot more enjoyable to walk up and down the rows of the main floor and the bottom floor that has these smaller companies, because you can spot whether there's a company over here of, that's interesting for reasons, or you just see if there's a general trend, like there were bubble blasters everywhere. There were the little power popper things everywhere. There was, you can at least notice things like that before you get to the main companies you're there to talk with.
Did you see anything like from I mean, there was that one thing that Drac did a video on, the like.
Oh yeah.
Did you see anything else that was like hobby adjacent, but from some random company?
That was the main thing. And that was I've gone blank. I know.
It previously
I know someone in chat posted who the original manufacturer was for that.
Yeah.
But I didn't worry about it, because it was a matter of I don't know if this is ever going to show up, and 99% of everything they had is stuff we've seen before, just in different paints.
Right.
Oh, but there was that.
Like you said, the purpose of the show is for them, like, they probably have a bunch of them in a warehouse still, and they're trying to find someone in the U.S. who wants to.
Yeah, absolutely. Because, I mean, there was the, I've gone blank on the company name, but the Big Power Electric blasters, their booth was actually like 3 booths down from Dark Zone's set up in the same aisle. So there's stuff like that where it's stuff all of us would recognize, but since I'm some Yahoo with a blog writing about stuff, I mean, I'm not going to be really affecting them being able to get someone to pick up the blaster.
Right.
So it's a matter of, we know it exists until someone actually carries it. I'm just not going to write about that as news.
Yeah.
One of those editorial decisions of, is this worth my time versus let's get our stuff out of here, and also we happen to be in New York City, so let's do things. Yep.
We feel that. I mean, like, that's a big part of why we have a half-length segment where it's like there's a lot of stuff that's like someone probably wants to know about it, but like I don't have time to write a whole thing about it. Like,
especially if it's like, it's like, here's this really cool thing, but it's like Wednesday, and it's like, do we think we can squeeze it in last second? Is anyone available? All right, sure. It's a half length, and then you just put it in, and then you tuck it in rather than it getting buried 2 weeks later, and then get it fitting in 2 weeks later rather than when they wanted it.
Yeah, and like the big power, there's a kitty. The big power electric stuff, I mean, it randomly popped up this past year, like Amazon here or there, but nothing really stateside. And there was a thing that was in Five Below for like 2 weeks, and then it was gone. It's like one of those things of, I'll buy the thing. I'll probably do a war video using it at some point, but as far as actually reviewing it or doing a news article on it, I really can't. It would feel like I was doing it to take up space rather than because. Yeah.
It's that thing. I remember that experience from, when I was trying to run more of a like kind of review centered YouTube channel where it's like you get your hands on things and you're just like, just feel obligated to make content about this. I'm not actually interested in this object. Mm-hmm. It's just here. It's like all the other objects that I've received this month. Why? What does Busby or Zuru ever show up at these things? I feel like I never Busby small company, Zuru massive company, and it feels like neither of them shows up.
Yeah, well, that's always the fun thing. Busby, for whatever reason, because they were in Toy Fair for a long while, and then after they were bought by Alex Toys and then split off from them again, for Toy Fair, it was usually the Yotel that was up the street from the Javits Center. They'd like rent out the meeting center there for like one morning of Toy Fair and then have people show up. But they weren't at Toy Fair or anything else for this year.
Okay.
So we didn't see them. Zuru was kind of maybe gonna be there and then never was. I mean, granted, they might have. It's possible they might have thought about sending a rep or something there because, of course, retailers are going to be there. But it's at this point, I'm assuming Zuru is happy with being big enough that they can do things like have not a headquarters, but a communication center basically across the street from Walmart headquarters. Right. They can do stuff like that and be set as far as retail is concerned. And they're just massive enough in terms of toys they're producing for the price.
Who is Zuru trying to convince to buy their stuff at this point? Like, you can buy them at Walgreens.
Yeah, which actually made it weirder that Zuru wasn't there, but Hasbro had floor space. because Hasbro always does like rents out the Time Center or something like that.
Really? Oh,
So
that's
it's
right.
always
I've seen.
so it's always an exclusive thing with plenty of space and everything else. And this time they were actually on the floor at Toy Fair.
Huh.
So it was.
What do you think would make them do that this year, as opposed to what they've done in the past? What did you see at the booth that was different or might make?
I mean, there was cool stuff here and there, but I mean, they're clearly paring down their stuff to what they think is their best sellers and doing that. And even when it comes to that, some of the stuff is cool, and some of it feels like they're throwing things at the wall to see what sticks.
Right.
Because
Peppa the Pig's mother is pregnant.
Yes, I saw that. Yes. Yes.
Very important news.
Yeah, yes, Hasbro 2025. We're making bacon.
Amazing.
But yeah, I mean, there was stuff like that. They had because I mean, we might as well just start here going through Hasbro, because when you go in through, because that, I mean, yes, we're here ostensibly for blasters, but you want to see anything else, like, sure, we're here, let's do all the stuff. But like board games, there were very few actual board games on display. There were a couple of the Monopoly variations, a couple things like related to,
I think.
like with Operation, a couple of their more mature, like, you know, what you would call the grown-up hobbyist board gaming type of thing. But there was a lot fewer board games stuff there on display than you would have seen at Hasbro's thing had they done their own thing.
Yeah.
And it was like that everywhere. D&D, that, I mean, they might have had stuff on display here and there, but the main focus was only a few items around there. So it was kind of like that across the board. And then you got to the Nerf part, and there were a decent number of things on display, but it was also a very small space. Because, I mean, I went through there, took some pictures, and by that time, there was a film crew setting up, and it was like, this already feels way too crowded. Okay, we're good.
Yeah. I mean, what do they have that's, like, super new, right? Because it's like what was actually on display in the Nerf section there? In the Nerf section,
I mean, they had some of the stuff that their collaboration with Franklin, so some of the new sports balls, stuff like that. They had some of the Super Soaker stuff going in there. The only thing they had for like trying was like the dunk fill, because you can just, you know, have a fish tank sitting there and go whoop with the reservoir to do that. They're not going to have a garden hose set up on the floor of the Javits Center for the other stuff. Nerf blasters themselves, they had the loadout line. They had different things on display in addition to that. Some old, like some of the Minecraft stuff, because there's a Minecraft movie coming out, so why not display your Pillager's crossbow? And then some new stuff.
I mean, why not? Because I've heard the Minecraft movie is going to be terrible. That's why not. But
I mean, yes, but from a marketing standpoint, tie in. The kids will love this, you know. But aside from loadout, that was the main focus of the thing, and there just happened to be some stuff from the Infinite debut or some of the branded Minecraft or other stuff. So it was. Loadout was clearly the thing that they were hoping to get lots of attention on, but other stuff was there for depending on who was coming through.
Yeah. The Franklin thing is interesting because you know, the recent what were they calling it again? The previous one was Blueprint 2. Oh, playing to win. They're playing to win.
Play to win. Yeah.
Strategy 3, play to win.
Whatever, yeah. Their interview that Chris Cox had about talking about Nerf specifically, like needing to look beyond the dart, and
what was it?
the Franklin thing immediately comes out, right?
Yeah, that comes out. I mean, granted, it's been a partnership that's been going for a while there, because you have the Nerf swords and other things. Well, the new version of the Nerf fencing, which I can tell you firsthand, adults will destroy soon enough. Yes. We tried that; it died. Kids, I will see how long it lasts.
I did a segment on the Nerf fencing thing, and I remember I tried doing some like callback to the original like advert for that segment. I was like, oh, they're actually bringing back the old fencing set. Let's see how that goes. And then everyone got in hand, and they were just like, no, this is not what I remember. This is awful. This is gonna break in like 5 minutes.
Such a disappointment. Such a great toy.
We put so much time into that script, and it was just like, man.
I think we put more time into our segment about it than they put into the design of the
like unironically.
But yeah, they've had stuff ongoing, like that's been ongoing. Who is it? Wowie Toys out of Canada, that's been doing a bunch of the Super Soaker like standalone things, like the shoot it with water robot, or the various more cheaply made things that fall under the Super Soaker brand that you'd find at like Dollar General or something like that. So it's been partnering with other brands where they think they can make money just off the licensing, and then trying to reduce their core stuff to, let's do this and see what we can do to sell it.
Yeah. And
admittedly, changing your marketing strategy, your slogan every cycle doesn't seem to bode well.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That's been my concern.
The closest thing like that I can think recently, it's a completely different category, but I'm really into like tech, for example. And I remember for the longest time, AMD always has struggled to be competitive with NVIDIA, but the problem that they ran into was marketing. So the GPUs themselves, had they been marketed a little better for like the price they were at, weren't always that bad. But when you get into naming schemes such as the RX 50 or 580, 590, then you get to Vega 56, Vega 64, something Explorer something, and then you get to the Fury X something, then you get to the 7090 XT, and then like all these other random names.
What are we talking about here?
Yeah, exactly.
They also released a Fury X? That's cool.
You're just like, what the heck is going on here? What is this branding? What is the naming? I can't tell what's supposed to be what. And then you get to NVIDIA, every new generation, they just sequentially add a new number in front of it. And
I keep having to explain to people the difference between the N1 Dart and N series, and the like, that like N series is a specific line of blasters, and the Dart is called the N1 Dart because people are like, oh yeah, it's like an N1 Minecraft blaster, and it's like, well, it uses the N1 Dart. It's
close enough.
Yeah.
Close enough.
It's close enough, but it's also like if you're trying to, like, the fact that a company like Hasbro,
you're trying to emphasize that it's its own new thing that you can't use with everything else. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. We're also always, like you were saying too, and maybe you can speak to this, but like, I often see people in the hobby saying like, oh, like they release N1 and then immediately there's something about like, oh, like sales are down, and people are like, oh, clearly N1 wasn't good, and it's like, well, like there's a long delay between like we made a business decision to make this thing, and it takes like X months to years to make that thing actually come into pass, and by that time you're already responding to the things that you did last year when you're making your financial
generally everything has at least a 2 or 3 year development cycle. So N1 darts, N series, it's been cooking for a while. They knew this was their this was the basket they were putting their eggs in, and they're going to keep putting their eggs in and going for as long as they can, and then other stuff that's gonna pop up now and then because of whether it's reusing old tooling, like the Fortnite 6-shooter that they showed is like, oh, we're still using elite darts
Right.
But, or like some of the branded stuff, because it's easier to just pop out something with the 50 cal darts than try to do something completely new for whatever the latest Marvel or Star Wars thing is. At least for the moment.
Yeah, but here's another thing I'm kind of wondering. That also sort of just ties into, curious about your opinions on sort of like how Hasbro's doing. Sometimes you go to these booths and they're staffed by just like randos that they hired who like study the catalog and just talk to you. Sometimes they're staffed by people from the company. Sometimes they're staffed by like marketing. What did the companies? I mean, because I know like Dart Zones, their booth is
Dart Zone is, they have their marketing person. They also have their social media person. They have their business person. They have their guy that in Pennsylvania that ends up doing all the different conventions or going to Maryland Mayhem and doing all that sort of stuff.
Who was staffing Hasbro? Did you get to talk to anybody with any interesting insight?
It's mainly just for stuff like Toy Fair. It's mainly just marketing.
Yeah.
If you get the chance to do something like when they did the in-series launch, inviting people to go to that, then you get a chance to actually talk to engineers and stuff like that. But for Toy Fair, it's marketing.
Right. I think actually you're the only person who was at that. Oh, not the only person. One of only a couple people who was at that we haven't talked to yet. But now it's kind of like, okay, N series is out. It exists.
Yeah, it's out. It exists. There are definitely some cool aspects about it. Why am I going blank on the Raven replacement?
The Sprinter.
Sprinter, yes. Yeah. The Sprinter was really cool. I liked the Infinite. And then some of the ideas, like we've noticed, all wards, They just started turning into, let's market a thing as many times as we can before someone notices, and then we'll get around to maybe doing something new.
Well, they're doing the agility this time around.
I did notice for sure, there was
now it's the agility, yeah.
The interesting thing about that one specifically for me when I was looking at stuff is I remember seeing in prior articles they mentioned the reason the Pinpoint existed was because the Pinpoint was like a spiritual successor to the Eagle Point, which sold very well for Elite 2.0. But the Pinpoint had a lot of jamming issues from what I understand. Now I know that this would have been further along in the development process, but I almost wonder if the reason that they swapped to agilities but bolt action was to make it more like the Eagle Point, which was very popular.
That's very likely to do it like that, and also just it's simply easier for kids to use.
It's simpler, it's simpler, easier, and it's also already shown to be successful.
Whatever you imagine your perfect magazine-fed blaster is, the front-loading 6-shot thing is always going to be easier for kids to use.
Yeah, because I was like...
I was just going to say, I've been in the agility quite a lot because I've still been trying to design new replacement cylinders for them. They are a very simple system to design around. That's why we're seeing bolts, we're seeing the pump action, we're seeing the top load. The way they designed it, you could literally design any type of priming mechanism around it. It's a very, very simple system. I actually really like the agility for that. But yeah, if you're just going to rehash it that many times, that is also kind of like I said, it's going to become the oop.
Yeah, I mean, granted, you could if you view it like that, then in reality, the loadout system is basically only 4 or 5 new blasters because 2 or 3 of them are just dependent on which store you get it from.
Yep.
Yeah.
So, unless you listen to the marketing
pick your starter Pokemon.
Unless you listen to the marketing department where every modulus blaster was actually 6 blasters in one.
Yeah.
In which case, they're actually releasing like 20 new blasters.
Oh, totally, yeah.
It was really interesting speaking of making the scripts for these segments, because I had to I was talking to Vile about this before the show started, but I was looking through information because we had the initial leaks. So we had 4 of the blasters leak with different prices than were later announced. Back on the 1st of this month, an official listing of all of the blasters were done on some news article website. again with mixed kind of incorrect pricing, and they didn't have all the details. And then I had to go to your site because none of the videos actually had the information I needed to actually get the actual pricing.
Oh, that was the annoying thing, because I got the email. It was within the first hour of being at Toy Fair was when the email went out with the general press release. So I am there. The only thing I have to edit with is my phone, trying to copy and paste off the PDF, and it's not copying right. So I'm like swapping between different instances of Notepad of trying to copy the info without it mixing everything up, and then just put it on the website. I was like, I'm done posting for today.
Yeah, like I checked like 3 or 4 different sources, and I was like, okay, that's it. I'm just going to BlasterHub. I know all the information I need is going to be there.
Yeah. Just trying to do that on a mobile phone was annoying.
Like, for example, the only person aside from you that had alluded that the Flare Fusion and Frost Fusion were different prices was Drac, and he hadn't even mentioned what the price difference was. And I was like, okay, so I know there's a price difference now. Now, what is it? and then I checked, and I was like, oh, it's literally a difference of $5, but that's still important to know for when I actually say that in the video.
Yeah.
Or like,
because this thing has slightly more attachments, or uses more plastic.
Slightly more things than the other, because you also had like Cyberlight Ghost as well, which is basically the same thing but with different attachments, and
glow in the dark. You
had the
glowing
Shadow
LEDs
Speed.
make everything better.
You had like the Shadow Speed Recon, which sounded like a Chat GPT like garble type thing. That's the entry point pump action one.
Now that you mention it, yeah, it does.
it feels like it was just like generate name here. Like the blaster itself looks fine. Like of the agility reshells, that would be the one that I would be most interested in, just because it's pump action. But like the name was just like word vomit kind of.
But yeah, I mean, you say that now, but I remember the whole joke of between In-Strike Elite of choose a name from the first column, choose a name from the second column. This is what your blaster is called.
Right.
But and it worked pretty consistently, and now the difference is these names now it just feels like they just used a language learning model and popped something out.
Someone should do a like first letter of your first name, this word. First letter of your last name, this word. Month
that
you
is
were
your
born
blaster
in,
name.
this thing, and then like whatever is like the capacity.
Oh yeah,
and like there's your blaster name.
Yeah, because you get something
gonna
like,
try to log in without using the password. I just need enough information. Yeah,
exactly.
You got something like Recon CS6 or stuff like that, and it was like clip system or like other random stuff that like actually felt cohesive, everything naming scheme wise. And then every time you went up to the next line, it'd be like In-Strike or In-Strike Elite or In-Strike Elite XD. You felt like there was some kind of like you could tell, oh hey, this is the new thing. Now it's just like where I'm trying to even find it. Arctic Zero Striker, which sounds like you're hitting 0 targets with that name.
Mentioning N-series things with new cylinders, look at that pretty thing on Vile's table.
Yep.
One of my test cylinders that I was making. Yeah, I need to put more time into them, but yes. Actually, one thing I need to ask, see, you've handled the blasters at the Toy Fair, correct? Buffdaddy?
Yeah.
You got a chance to fire them? Could you tell what the plastic was made of? Because the one issue that I've had with In-Series is that it's a polyethylene. So things like, especially for people who do like integrations like I do.
Compared to like the ABS from all the stuff
ABS,
before.
we could use ABS, but polyethylene is just non-reactive. Could you tell?
Yeah. It's so much harder gluing things or just getting it to bond in general.
Right.
It was hard to tell, actually. Because, I mean, at the very least, it didn't feel like... what's the best reference I can give?
After, maybe?
If you've ever bought like a $3 or $4, what was clearly a knockoff thing, say at Walgreens or somewhere, or like the discount store where you could feel the difference in the plastic. It didn't feel different in that way.
That's right.
But whether that's due to the molding or how they've done their paint scheme on everything, I can't tell you.
Gotcha. So we'll have to wait and see, it looks like.
I think we're just going to have to wait and see.
Ugh. Gotta wait longer. Dang.
I think I think the design language in some of these were fairly solid. I'm just still kind of mixed on the screen printing, but Hasbro's screen printing I've always been kind of like hit or miss on opinion wise for.
Yeah, it's been hit or miss. Zuru, for as cheap as they've done stuff, they've really got that thing down.
They've got it down for their skins line.
Yeah. And then they've had to retool their stuff as necessary to make extra parts because, because it does flat or mostly flat surfaces, so you have to have those middle pieces between the shell halves. But it looks really freaking good.
One of the things for Zuru too is I feel like one of the really indicative things about the plastic they used was a lot of their older blasters. You could just hold them and twist them and feel. And I feel like they haven't changed their plastic, but they figured out how to use it more effectively.
They've layered it enough to try to at least add some rigidity to it.
Engineering them better. Like they've I think figured out, because Hasbro is saying right now that they're going to cut costs without cutting quality, and there was
you can only do that to a certain point. Yeah.
Well, and it was distinctly said in an interview recently by Chris Cox again that one of the main ways they're doing that is by making internal changes that the average consumer won't notice, which is not hobbyists, right? Like these are literally the things that made made hobbyists, I should say specifically, upset about Elite 2.0. It's making those changes that are internal that don't matter if your use case is toy to kid for 2 to 3 months and then not worrying about it after that,
Which is okay until you have something like the Warden come out where you use it the first time and it breaks, Right. They had that whole fiasco.
Yeah.
This is like taking me back to because you said now, like, for example, Zuru is in a position now where they can basically just be like across the street from Walmart.
They have a building there that's basically across the street from Walmart's headquarters. Yeah.
But like, meanwhile, if you took Grimm from 2025 back to 2017, I remember when I was at my grandmother's house and we went to a CVS or whatever, and I was like, what is this X-Shot thing? And I picked up a Max Attack, and it was it was a yellow, basically Recon with a long attached barrel that you couldn't remove and a long attached stock that you couldn't remove unless you took it
and a magazine that took shorter than normal darts. Yes.
Yep, I remember. And I tried it out, and it was yellow and blue because the yellow and blue ones didn't hit very well, so it was getting like in-strike performance, not even in-strike elite. And I was just like, well, this sucks. And then I remember just being like, opening it up. I'm like, let me see if I can modify this. Maybe I can make this take like Stefan darts or something. It was like, no, the internals just aren't gonna. The plastic isn't good enough quality to do that. And now for you to tell me, if you were to go like fast forward to now, they're going to be like one of the big brands. I would never have believed it because they were like still selling occasionally in that line, like stuff that had those like thin foam discs that you'd shoot out of stuff.
They sold those for the longest time. And I mean, for what Zuru does of manufacture it as cheaply as possible to the point of we are going to have all of our own factories that are fully automated, do everything as cheap as possible, to the point where they've said tariffs suck, but our supply chain is still so good that we're not going to change anything.
Yeah.
Compared to, like, say, Hasbro, that's moved a ton of stuff to India or other countries.
Yeah. So if you were to show me, like, a photo of, like, for example, like, just an early example, the Turbo Advanced, or later the Insanity line, or any of the X-Shot Pro stuff, I wouldn't believe you that was the same company.
Oh, yeah. That time period, you wouldn't believe that it was coming from Zero. Yeah.
No, not at all, because, like, I think the only other stuff that I can remember is, like, the X-Scope, for example. You could, like, literally, like, swing it and it would open the breech on the thing. All right.
Don't need to press the button, just swing it.
Just swing it. It'll open up.
You mentioned the tariff situation. Were people talking about that at Toy Fair this year? Like, were people talking openly about it on the floor?
I mean, talking openly, no. If you asked about it, yes.
Yeah.
Because it's one. Obviously, it's going to come up more between retailer and the producer, since they have to actually, do the money part.
Right.
But I mean, it was a fun talk doing stuff with, like, say, Dart Zone, because they're in a fun position of, they produce stuff in China.
Right.
They're certainly not doing it for as cheaply as like someone like Zuru would be. So they have to try to do their balancing act of how much profit margin can we give up without like sacrificing something that's going to make our product look really bad.
Right.
Because like trying to that's getting Walmart or Target to pick up one of their blasters is a key thing to doing stuff nowadays, just because of the mass quantities. So that's one of the only real ways you can deal with trying to overcome that without losing too much money in the process or jacking up prices enough that people decide not to buy you because everyone's looking for whatever the new value thing is.
Right. Yeah,
that's apparently a day-to-day thing at this point. Yeah.
Well, I mean, and again, we talk about things having a 2-year lead time. There's a lead time just for shipping stuff. So if you start a shipment now, and the tariff
doesn't come into port until
you haven't even accounted for that, and you've already committed to pricing, and now you're just kind of in the hole on it.
Yeah.
So that is the kind of thing that directly impacts our the things we're interested in and our hobby. And Hasbro is saying that that's influencing their decision to do more of this sort of internal cost cutting on product. So people just don't get that, man. I'm realizing that I forgot to do something, but I'll do it in a minute. We should keep moving on our outline here. I could talk about this stuff with you for forever, but luckily we get to continue to talk to you about it because this podcast and news show are largely supported by our Ko-Fi. Thank you to all of our continuing backers. One of the perks that backers get is the opportunity to ask podcast guests questions, and you drew a lot of questions. So we're going to be spending a minute on this part. So
boy!
We better move to it.
This was way more than I'm normally used to seeing.
Well, admittedly, part of the reason for that is I remembered to ask them for questions more than earlier, 3 hours in advance.
That always helps. Yes.
Which is wild because I'm so busy this week. But for some reason this week I was like, oh yeah, I got to do that thing yesterday. Anyway. First up, as we tying into the topic of Toy Fair, Dead Man's Foam asks, what product at Toy Fair are you most excited about? What product at Toy Fair left a lot to be desired? And what type of product were you hoping to see at Toy Fair this year?
What type of product? I can easily answer that. I was hoping to see more. Because obviously Hasbro had their main focus. Some of the people weren't there, as we discussed.
Yeah.
And then Dart Zone, it was a complicated series of, for the moment, we're doing special recolors of some blasters. We do have one thing new that we can show you that no one's seen yet. We have the pirate flintlock blasters that will appear eventually. But as for the rest of the year, we just can't get into that yet.
Yeah.
So it was, the type of product I was hoping to see was just more. What the Primus was the thing I was most excited about after seeing it and handling it, because it was a consumer grade Mark III, just obviously for regular toy firing speeds and everything else, but between how the mechanism works, all the cool attachments and stuff for it, it's $40, and people are gonna mod the heck out of it anyways.
What other quirky 90s band do we think they'll name their next blaster after?
Oh, clearly they're gonna have the Dart Zone Megadeth. The left to be desired. I guess Hasbro's stuff would qualify just because it was not much that was new or innovative. Because, I mean, even the Galactic Commander being their flagship, yay, it has 18 round. Was it 18 rounds?
Yeah, 18 rounds.
18 round, two 18 round magazines, and it has select fire, and I'm firing this, and it feels exactly the same delay as the regulator, just you can feel there's pusher going instead of a belt.
Right.
So it would.
It's interesting to hear that based on your first-hand experience, because I definitely, like, I keep looking at the listing for it, and I keep, like, reading about it, and I'm just like, I'm not taking anything away from this. I'm not like,
yeah,
just another.
There was nothing inspiring.
Yeah.
Or it wasn't.
It is interesting.
Even if they were just repacking stuff that they've used before, it wasn't doing it in a new way and something that was really cool and that's new that we haven't had before.
It is interesting that their flagship line is printed. That their flagship line has patterns and like seems to hint at like a play universe, like a story background, but none of that information exists yet. Like there's these logos for what could be like factions for some kind of something, I guess. I don't know, but like none of that.
Like doing Avengers without Avengers.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, and I feel like that's some of the most interesting stuff that Nerf has done in the past with Zombie Strike and, you know, attempted with sort of tried to do with like Rebel and like Doomlands, which was not as successful, but like I feel like that was some of the like the storytelling part that they did with those, and I feel like that potential is here. Like, will there be any follow through on that? I don't know. Like, do a little cartoon for it or something. I don't know.
My first impression when I saw the screen printing was this feels like the shell designs are obviously better than what I'm about to compare it to. And some of the internals, and I would say some of the blasters that they're based on are a little better than this stuff. But I got Nerf zombie vibes, where it's like they're trying to harken back to something they've done previously, where it's like you can see the idea of kind of like a line being there, but no definitive time being put into like a full fleshing out of the line. Like, you know, if you went to Alien Menace, there was like clear lore being built there. Each blaster had intricate like cohesion as to what was what and like its elements, or if you went to Doomlands or anything else, you could tell exactly what line, what blaster, what kind of the narrative was for those things. And then you
nostalgia without actual effort.
Exactly.
Kind of.
Yeah. The weird one for me was the again the word vomit, the Shadow Speed Recon, because in all of the preview images, because that's the one that looks like of the agility reskins, the one I'd be most interested in, with like one of Vile's shells, or cylinders rather, have it pump action and be compact. But it in the photos before we actually saw images of it, it looks like it's translucent red plastic, but in person it's opaque.
Yeah.
Or like there are a couple other examples of that where it looks a little different than it appeared in person, like the sniper equivalent has a half transparent plastic at the top of the like silencer thing at the top and all of the infographics, but the Toy Fair version, for example, just had a completely opaque
the difference between the image and the actual product.
It's the Travis Scott blaster all over again.
Oh God, let's not even go there.
Okay, what product at Toy Fair are you most excited about? 3 words or less.
Primus.
All right. We have answered 1 out of 6 Ko-Fi questions. Big Al asks, what's been the biggest new blaster you've seen over the years that you thought might change the hobby?
I would have originally thought the Dart Zone Mark 1. Because it would have been what, 20?
And then people tried to play with it.
Apocalypse 2019 would have been when Drac had one of the sample ones with him, because that was the year Apocalypse kept jumping from site to site before finding somewhere we could finally play. But using that, natively taking half darts, and we didn't necessarily have to mod anything. It was like if this sells, then we're going to actually get stuff. I mean,
Yeah,
obviously the 1.1 was slightly better, but we didn't really get that level of excitement until the Nexus Pro came out.
Well, that's an interesting answer too, because like I've been listening
but seeing that and seeing it was an actual product that didn't have any level of disappointment behind it, like the Ceta did.
I've been listening to Drive to Work, which is a podcast by the head designer for Magic the Gathering. And he was going through a talk that he did on the most influential card designs, and I feel like something like the Mark 1.1 fits into that thing, or the Mark 1 fits into that thing where it's like nobody's actually going to take their Mark 1 to a game right now. But it was extremely influential in that it set the groundwork for what has sort of become the main, like if you, like every, like, Dart Zone especially, but like X-Shot, it's bullpup, but like they finally have also done a Pro Blaster in a similar form factor. Like that is kind of the form factor. A lot of designers kind of cut their teeth with the pump action primary, and it's really sort of like set the tone for like what should be possible at relatively low cost. So even if that particular blaster is not really relevant anymore, I that makes a lot of sense to me. That it sort of like set the benchmark for where off the shelf products have gone after that.
At least as far as feel wise goes, I also really, really liked the Mark 1/1.1, even if it didn't impact as hard as the Nexus Pro does. I think I'm probably one of the only people that still will occasionally bring out their Mark 1.1, just because I really like how that one feels to use. I still use it in games.
I know I have the stuff somewhere for making it a like full breach to actually, use and get some more oomph out of it, as I just need to find time.
I'm just too lazy because I don't want to open up the sarcophagus, I think as people start referring to it, with the plastic clip enclosure that surrounds the retalloid internals.
Yeah.
Colin Blank of Ghost Low Taco, friend of the pod, says, I want to first thank you for being such a dedicated and positive force for the hobby. BlasterHub is a resource that I and many others tend to take for granted. What has been your motivation to stick with it after all these years?
I still enjoy it. I still have people that come to me and say, hey, thanks for doing stuff. And if I'm enjoying it and it's helping, then why not keep going?
Yeah.
Because I mean, it's little stuff like that. Like what's the first Small Mutation Madness? I went to that. And I don't remember if it was the first or the second game, but there was at least two people that were there and thanked me for posting about it, that it was happening, within a decently good amount of time before the actual events, because that was where they first heard about it and showed up, and they absolutely enjoyed themselves. So stuff like that has really helped me for keeping going, as to just posting news, reviews, everything else.
I feel like the first part of Colin's message answers the second part of Colin's message.
I mean, probably, but yeah.
Like, you do something really great for the hobby. I really appreciate that it exists. Why do you still do it? Like,
well, you see, there's all these secret channels behind the scenes funneling money to me, and oh god, I wish that was true, because I would have so much better stuff.
Oh yeah, that would be so nice, man.
The foam hobby needs its own George Soros, I guess. Iron Gopher asks, what is your preferred flywheeler, both from a major manufacturer as well as hobbyist made? Also, thank you for all the cages and the internal photos and just being a pretty stand-up dude.
They just throw random cages on Thingiverse and let people use them. Preferred flywheeler. That's actually a tough one at this point, because I've stopped. Predominantly, it was always the Mark III, because I had one modded. Well, I should say had, because it's still down there. There's one in the basement with a Band Blaster's cage with that reinforced internals and a switch that's kind of hanging in there, but still needs replaced. But that's the thing that's gotten used for so many competitive games. But these days, between the Venom and the what's the other one I've been using? Not the Omnia Pro. It's fun to break out, but it's not
the Maxim.
Yeah, the Maxim. Cause I've just enjoyed using them because you can just run around. They're relatively small blasters, and it's been fun not needing to do 200 FPS for everything. Yeah, that is one of the things I enjoy. Competitive is fun, but I don't need to be spending my whole life shooting that fast.
Yeah. Krine, Blaster Time, do you have a clear idea what will be the blaster of 2025? Can you choose one blaster? Can you already talk about it or not? What are your predictions for 2025 Blaster of the Year?
I mean, granted, as much praise as I've given the Primus as of now, the fact that we've seen so little, I don't think I can choose one blaster.
Yeah.
And actually, I think someone like him, he has better contacts than I do. So, if we're being perfectly honest, between him doing hobby stuff and doing the web store in Europe,
Discord and be like, he's waiting to come in the Discord and be like, Buff is wrong. The wrong thing.
I have it in hand. You don't know. I have it.
But given that there's so much that we haven't seen from multiple companies and everything, I'm sure we'll know it when we see it. Mm-hmm. But as to what it is, I no. I can't give a good enough. I mean, heck, maybe someone like Drac or one of them has seen something that they can't talk about either. So
it's the Ward. It's definitely the Ward.
That's definitely the Ward.
Yes.
Don't you mean the double impact and every other single name it's gone by since?
Yeah, exactly. If quantity is is what makes it, then it's probably the Ward. We also play a hobby trivia game on this podcast, and the way that works is someone gets picked to potentially win if our guest manages to get 2 out of 3 questions, and if that person I'm explaining this really badly. The point is, someone won. CR Nerf was able to get 2 out of 3 questions right last episode, and so Captain Shotgun won a free question for our guest this week, and that is you. And the question is, what is your favorite era in this hobby so far, both in terms of blasters and events?
That's a hard one, because just backstory. I don't know the gender. We'll just go with Captain Shotgun. Captain Shotgun and I messaged a little bit, just asking about me in general, just my experience doing stuff. Mm-hmm. So this undoubtedly comes up after, talk about me doing Nerf related things since 2009, basically. So making all your glue tips and everything else all the way to present day. Favorite era in this hobby. This, nostalgia-wise, I'm gonna say it's right at the beginning before In-Strike Elite happened. Because it was the time period of you had all your fun shit cannons that you could, slap CPVC barrel onto and do insane things. You had your marshmallow blasters, but you also had all your fun things coming out like Vortex and just other off-the-wall things. So you could use anything or just try to mod something that was terrible and just try to, it actually shot 50 feet. That's a success, Yeah. It was painful at times, and we spent way too much time modifying blasters with power tools and inhaling bad fumes off the plastic we were melting or burning. But that was probably my favorite era in the hobby. newer ones, they have things to love about them, but that is my nostalgia trip. That is my favorite era for blasters.
That's definitely a good era to pick.
Yeah.
I do. Speaking of fumes, though, I do wonder what kind of fumes Slug was huffing, because I stumbled across his old what do you call it?
I will never 3D print.
Reddit, not the I will 3D print, but his like HPA like crazy crack smoke den like creations that like never succeeded. Yes. Yeah, those that I'm like, oh my god, how is this supposed to function?
You get those, or the old Bolt Sniper web page that has all the projects that never got finished, but you're looking at it like, how did this guy make these things? You know,
the BAR, or you have like the random like bows people would show up to wars at for HVZ that hit probably.
And now we have the modern printed versions with that use silly shells and everything. So you know, things come around. Event wise, though, I would have to say, right before the pandemic was my favorite area event wise, because you had these beginnings of lots. I mean, obviously, End War was just kicking it into high gear, but you had that Ragfest, you had Mutation Madness that was just getting up and running, and we had so much HVZ. Oh my god, there was at least 2 months out of 2019 where every weekend I was driving somewhere on God's green earth to do a game somewhere. Mind you, this was the point where I had a job that was working 4/10s. I had Friday, Saturday, and Sunday free for driving for different stuff. So we had campground games, mall games. We had like Ragfest on the campus of a whatever elementary school with a bunch of people chasing each other with blasters. That was my favorite era game wise, and I think it's taken a while to recover, but we're slowly getting back there. At least in terms of the big events. Smaller events, maybe not necessarily, and it's just taking longer for clubs to reform and do things. Yeah,
very much depends on where you are. It's just kind of.
Oh, if you live in Maryland, you're having the time of your life.
Yeah, right. Well, and we'll talk more about this near the end of the pod too, because I kind of want to look at some of the major events that we have coming up, because we starting to see the calendar for the year. Also, by the way, on our Discord we have pronoun roles. There's a reason for that, because I can tell you that Captain Shotgun uses either he, him, or she, her pronouns. And this is why we have this on the Discord, because we're constantly having to ask people before we do videos what people's pronouns are, and we do it a lot less now that we have those roles on the Discord.
And if you're not sure, you can always just use their name.
Exactly, and we wind up doing that a lot, but when you have to say someone's name like 10 times in a video script, it gets a little old, and it's really nice to have a pronoun fall back on.
Yes. Yeah.
Speaking of our trivia game and raffle, it is time to play our hobby trivia game. And even though Colin literally went in the backer channel on the thing and said, hey, don't forget to pull a raffle winner, I did not pull a raffle winner. And so the never-ending shtick of me going to random.org and having to prove that I'm a human, and then
I'm not so sure. You could be 3 raccoons in a trench coat.
That's possible, but 3 raccoons in a trench coat are still allowed to get random numbers.
Maybe that's where the family and family's foam sport came from. It was a family of raccoons in a trench coat all along.
That's possible. I will never tell. Smoky Mountain Nerf.
Hey, I remember them from Rag.
Oh! Wait, is it?
He was there at the live pod, remember? And then he was also there at the comp, I believe. And
that's right.
They were on the staff, and they had talked to us and mentioned that they listened to the podcast on the road. So, hey, Smoky Mountain Nerf, you're probably listening to this while you're on the road right now. Hi, you might get a question on the pod.
Yeah, so keep an ear out. And for once, we finally scheduled some of the podcasts out ahead of time. So if you, Smoky Mountain Nerf, are lucky enough for Buff to get 2 out of 3 trivia questions right, you will get an opportunity to ask our next guest a question. It is the designer of the Stinger flywheel blaster.
Ooh.
That should be a really good one. Really excited to have him on. Yes. So, are you ready, Bob?
I guess I am. Let's go for it.
I don't have a clever name for this. I always have like a clever name. You just know a lot about the hobby, and you've been around for a long time. So I came up with some really obscure questions about Nerf blasters appearing in media.
Oh, great.
We'll be asking about.
So you chose literally the one thing I'm not going to be able to do.
I did write a note here to remind myself to point out that I think my favorite thing about your name is that Buff and Nerf are opposites.
Yeah, that is.
That has nothing to do with the trivia. It's just that's where I wrote the note to do it. All right, who wants to go?
Let's see how good or bad this is going to be.
Who wants to read a question first?
Does not matter to me.
You know what? Looking at the questions right now, I think we should actually flip the order. I think we should start with the third question and move up to the first one.
I guess I'll go with the third one then.
Okay,
the
go
first. So technically the first. All right.
Yeah.
The press photo of Tony Stark with a Stark Industries weapon, a painted and redressed Nerf mag strike, is well known, as is the unpainted blaster that appears in Captain Marvel. But which early MCU movie featured a heavily redressed blaster as a prop? Is it A, Thor, Rebel Agent Bow, B, Incredible Hulk, Titan rocket launcher, or C, Captain America, the First Avenger, long shot?
Oh, buddy. Captain America... it's not Captain America. Long shots have been used in lots of prop things, but I'm pretty sure it's not Captain America.
Even with all the like sci-fi weaponry in all the like experiment.
Yeah, because I mean, you have Terra Nova, you have all these other TV shows that just repainted Night Finders and long shots. But that would limit it to Thor or you said Incredible Hulk?
The options are A, Thor, Rebel Agent Bow, B, the Incredible Hulk, Titan rocket launcher, or C, Captain America, the First Avenger, long shot.
No, it can't be Thor because Avengers was 2012, and that you had to have Nerf Elite come out before you would have Nerf Rebel. So timeline-wise, Thor couldn't even have a Rebel bow. So the only thing has to be Incredible Hulk.
Is that your final answer?
Let's go with it.
All right, you have no idea how big I've been smiling ear to ear, hearing you like, oh, the brain is brain, and you understand the timeline, and I know KT is. You are correct. It is B, Incredible Hulk Titan rocket launcher. Like, oh, it's so nice.
I knew there was a branded version to go with Incredible Hulk, but whether it was actually in the movie was another matter.
Yeah.
And it's been so long. Yeah,
yeah, because like I could, as soon as you ruled out the other one, I was like, oh, they're so gonna get this because Thor came out like. The Rebel line wasn't even out yet. They're going to get this.
Yeah.
I want to hear this play out. Excellent. All right.
Now, unfortunately, the second question is going to be a lot easier for you. You want to read it, Val?
Sure, I'll do it. Which episode of the hit TV sitcom?
No, you were supposed to read the middle one. What? Fine, whatever.
Oh, I thought you said we were going 3, then the first one.
No, we were going 3, 2, 1. It's okay.
Just go with it.
2 is the one that's going to be. 2 is no, but you got to do 2 first because that's going to be the easy one now.
Okay, so should I do 2 now?
We gotta end with that.
Do 2.
We'll do 2. I didn't get too far into it. All right, fine. We'll do that. All right.
Fine.
So, which 2011 TV show used long shots, recons, and night finders as the basis?
That's the thing I just mentioned.
As the basis for resin models of fictional weapons? Is it A, Smallville, B, American Horror Story, or C, Terra Nova?
Yeah, I'd see.
That was the other reason me and KT are smiling like out of our minds.
You're just guessing the other question ahead of time. Great, cool.
So I guess Buffdaddy has the ability to see into the future, the Nerf all-seeing eye, if it were.
Yeah.
The buff is the eye.
So what was the other question?
So that's 2 out of 3, but we're gonna do the other question anyway. Which episode of the hit TV sitcom Friends features Ross briefly wielding a 1999 Nerf Secret Shot 2 while reading a script for Joey? A. The one with the bullies, season 2. B. The one with mac and cheese, season 6. C. The one with Joey's interview, season 8.
I mean, funny and this is a question for my wife. Actually, she's the one that watches Friends. But he's reading the script with them, so I would assume it's the one with the Joey's interview. But that we'll just go with that. I know at this point the answer is irrelevant since we got 2 out of 3. But
okay, I'll let you stick with that one. That is incorrect, and admittedly, it might have helped you if I told you that the one with mac and cheese has cheese. It's like C period H period E period E period S period E period, because mac and cheese is like the
title of the
Yep. That is the episode, and season 2 was specifically. I'm surprised you didn't catch this, because season 2 was a red herring because that episode is older than the 1999 Nerf Secret Shot 2. So it could not have been in that episode for the same reason that you eliminated Thor.
I never watched Friends when it aired. I only ever watched Friends when I first met my wife, and we just kind of smashed through everything. So I have no clue what the actual time frame is.
Well, regardless, you did fall for the honeypot one, the one with Joey's interview, but that's okay, because you already got 2 out of 3. Congratulations. And Smoky Mountain Nerf. Yes, be sure to reach out and let me know what you would like us to ask the Stinger designer next month. I realized that, and I actually need to ask him about this. I keep calling him the Stinger designer because he has like a name as a video producer, sort of, but not like a designer name, and also like his like name is not public. So I was like, what do I call you? So that and many more questions will be answered in 2 weeks when we have him on the podcast. We've been going pretty long, which is awesome, but also I'm tired. But I want to get through a couple other topics that I
smash
really
through everything. Yep.
Etsy has made some big policy changes, or has upcoming, I guess, policy changes. I think it's the end of this month that they come into effect. I wanted to read the note that I wrote to them, which I did not get a response from, unfortunately. What is my... Sorry, what is this? Why are you only selling... This is not helpful. Ko-Fi says we have a new member. Thank you to our new member. This email doesn't... It just tells me we have a new member, and it doesn't say who it is.
So normally I click through those so you don't get the notifications for them. It never tells us. It never says.
Okay. Don't do that, because I need the notifications. Because people keep joining the Ko-Fi, and I only notice when I go in there to like do something in the Ko-Fi, and someone new is in the Discord channel. I was like, "Where'd you come from?" And the answer is, "You gave us money," which is like, what?
I'll make sure to remember that.
I don't know who this is. Okay, well, anyway, thank you. This is an awkward time to discover this. Hold on, where's the thing I was actually looking for?
He's rebooting. It's okay.
Yeah, we'll get there. It's fine.
3-person team. Things get lost along the way in translation sometimes.
We got this. This? What is this? Oh, you unsubscribed from something. Okay. No. Oh, I sent this to the... I know what I'm doing. I swear. We have like 3 email addresses for this
three emails, 3 years of news.
God, yeah. Every year we just add an email address. I found it. Okay. From News Collective, twice monthly. Etsy has become a major hub for the sale of 3D printable files, manufactured parts, and custom modified blasters used by hobbyists and competitive players in our sport worldwide. The hobby is also has a complicated relationship with the platform, with a number of creators having listings or entire accounts deleted without warning based on perceived violations of Etsy's firearms policy. Some creators within our hobby have reached out to us about emails they've received regarding planned changes to this policy on March 31st, and we have some questions regarding requests for some questions. I wrote a bad email. We have some requests for clarifications about these modified policies. The updated policies refer to imitation firearms, a term which is not defined. In fact, CPSC has consistently failed to define this term in recent changes to their own codes. How does Etsy define an imitation firearm? The updated policies specifically allow imitation firearms that are unlikely to be mistaken for a real firing weapon by an average person and toy guns, but disallow digital listings and instructions to create imitation firearms, regardless of realism. Does this mean that a 3D printed file for a foam dart firing blaster would be disallowed, even if it were fully unrelated to the visual design of a real steel firearm? And both your current and updated policies base the decision of what is and isn't realistic based on whether a, quote, average person could mistake it for a real firing weapon. How does Etsy define an average person? Who is responsible for the determination of whether this average person could mistake a particular blaster, part, or 3D file for a real steel firearm? They didn't respond. I'm sure we're just not a big enough press outlet for them.
The average person is defined as the person that will result in us having the least liability.
And I've always said that, like, you know, that person is Margaret, the old lady who lives on the corner who's looking out her window at the park. And, you know, like, that's kind of your benchmark ultimately when you're doing, like, park games, right? It's like,
yeah, absolutely.
Is it obviously a toy or not? Because, like, I don't know anything about firearm profiles. I know very little about real weapons. And so I can't always tell when, like, a hobby design has a concerning profile. Like, if it has vented barrel shroud, looks enough like a gun to me, I guess, if you print it in black.
Yeah, if you print it in dark colors and the person's far enough away.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the thing that really is getting me about this is they see, like, the way that it's worded seems to specifically disallow digital files, 3D printable files, regardless of any other restrictions on the thing. And is there, like, I'm trying to figure out if there's some reason that they'd be doing that over just, like, tightening up their policy on, like, realistic stuff, which itself is not well defined. But, like, why would they want to restrict, like, some of the creators who, I don't want to name anybody because I don't want to
I feel like I would need someone who's more into the actual firearms scene to see whether there's some shenanigans behind the scene or, like, something that the government is worried about.
I'm not huge enough into the firearm scene, but I have friends who are, and I do know that 3D printed firearms have become prolific enough that that wording doesn't surprise me, because it's probably a, like, save their butt kind of thing. It's like, someone was selling files for a 3D printed firearm or whatever,
like, or a part to make it do something that's not supposed to.
Could they be concerned about? Could they be concerned about someone selling a part that is in fact, like, part of, or, like, the core of an actual 3D printable firearm, but they're disguising it somehow as being, like, a toy or a foam dart firing blaster?
When you get down to the internals of a firearm as well, the mechanisms look rather innocuous unless you actually know, oh, hey, that's like a striker thing for, like, this insert gun here type thing. So, like, if you sold that as a file and then you told someone to look at that and say, hey, that's something that converts an AR-15 to shoot in full auto, for example, by doing this funny little trick or whatever, someone who isn't versed in firearms probably isn't going to know that. So I'm sure that I don't know if you can do that with 3D printing currently. I don't know what they're all currently capable of, but I know there was already a problem with, like, metal stuff and stores selling stuff like that, and then people would grind stuff down a little bit, and then boom, you had a fully automatic firearm. So it wouldn't surprise me if there's stuff like that adjacent that they're just trying to future-proof for.
There is a huge push, and it has been, unfortunately, in the real steel, space. 3D printing has become very prolific in creating grips, lowers, uppers, a lot of components, like Grims is stating. There's jigs that are being done that you can use a Harbor Freight drill press to be able to make your own, to do ghosts, guns and stuff like that on registered firearms. And 3D printing has unfortunately opened the door up, and a lot of people seem to be really big about that. And I see it as it is a blanket statement for a company to cover themselves so that way they cannot be held liable or responsible for potentially distributing this type of stuff, obviously, because because
while actual gun manufacturers have certain protections in place, right, Etsy would not qualify for that.
And then this was a big thing, obviously. Suppressors was a really big one. Obviously, that used to be just a blanket illegal thing. Now you can, but it's very expensive to get them. They're all registered. They all have serial numbers and so on. And, but for a long time there was a lot of listings on websites, even Amazon. And I even saw listings on Newegg for fake, for basically they would state the listing would have a name for something else, but it was for somebody to basically assemble their own at home. And this was it. So this is actually an illegal item, at least at the time. And it's things like that. It's sort of there's so many people trying to find their workaround, and 3D printing made their workaround very easy. And a company like Etsy obviously has to protect themselves because they, if this is used, and I even saw an article, I think it was sometime last year, where somebody was actually arrested and they were producing illegal firearms. And of course it was a lot of 3D printed parts. And that becomes a little bit difficult because in our stuff, especially when you have like 3D printed blasters that look, even like the Gecko, I'll just
vaguely shaped. Yeah.
Well, even if we go back to Gecko, which was based off of a video game, it starts to look very similar to a lot of real steel things. The mag and grip setup, the way the catches work. You start looking at this, like you put a couple of metal components in there and they start going, hey, wait a minute, that something's a little bit sketchy here. And especially if you say, yeah, you just need this metal barrel. A lot of times they're not going to know the difference between, an aluminum barrel that we're firing Nerf darts out of and a barrel that could be actually firing, real bullets out of. And it starts to unfortunately get vaguely enough overlapping that, I'm pretty sure it is I think KT is right, where we really do, or at least the company needs to define these terms, and everybody needs to define them, because you can't say yes to one thing but no to another, and somehow they overlap as well, because then that makes it always it's only
you're at their leisure.
Well, it's only good for Etsy. Yeah. It's not good for the consumer of this, and because there's just so much overlapping with it, and terms that become it muddies the situation, especially when you get into legal battles. That's
I'm not sure it's even good for Etsy. Like a bunch of our, I mean, obviously we're our hobbyist small potatoes on the larger Etsy platform, but like it's still multiple creators have already just left the platform out of an abundance of caution.
Yeah,
it's just becoming lost revenue for them. Not a ton, but some. So to that note, I guess it's a good thing that Printables has like a thing where you can pay for stuff, because that's where a lot of them are moving to.
Yeah,
I think we've needed it for a while anyways. There's been a few other places. Etsy became a very large one, but it seems between business practices and obviously these changes in their policies are making it very, very difficult for us to have a place that we can safely, do our business and have, share designs and things like that. So, yeah.
Well, finally, I kind of wanted to look through. We're starting to get an idea of the calendar of our major events in the hobby this year, and I kind of wanted to go through them. You go to a lot of events.
I traditionally, yes. These days, not nearly as many, because my new job I started in October, I work Tuesday through Saturday.
Oh, geez. So,
yeah.
I'm in a similar position in some ways. I'm doing a lot more theater work that puts me on weekends a lot, and so I'm already looking out and going like, oh, like
what can I save the time for? Yeah.
Yeah, I can't do XY event or like a lot of situations where like I'll be designing. I have a show this weekend, but I need to be committed to, like, if I leave for one day, I can't commit to the entire show and I lose that entire job. And so it's like I can't. That happened. That's the reason I'm not going to Maryland Mayhem for the first time, because it's in the middle of 2 weeks of work, and if I were to go for that, I would miss the last day of one of them and the first day of the other one, and I couldn't do either one. So, first thing off, PTC HVZ is having their Invitational April 4th and 5th. I think that's the first major thing as we get into
Grove City is actually doing their first their club thing this weekend.
Oh, right.
It was the D game, but PTC's been traveling around hosting at different colleges, and that I might be able to make it for that one. I will have to check.
Yeah,
because that's dependent on a few things, but. Other than that, let's just go down the list.
North Shore Nerf War. Bane is like the most local, bigger, like newly formed but like growing club to me, and I haven't been able to go to anything because it's just things happen to be at the wrong time. I can't make it to this, unfortunately. I'm in the middle of producing a middle school musical and can't get away. And it just happens to be, but it seems really cool.
Let the little kids suffer.
Well, they will anyway. But it's a camping event. They're like taking over a campsite, and there's going to be a comp tourney at it. I'm curious. I know that teams have already signed up.
Teams have already signed up. Even if stuff hasn't signed up, I know of at least several groups of people I talk with that are, whether it's Canada or New York, they at least have this on the calendars as this might be a thing to go to because it's a freaking camping trip with Nerf. Yeah.
Seems pretty sweet. Maryland Mayhem, of course.
Definitely doing that, yeah.
I wish I was. Vile was there with me last year.
Yeah. I won't be able to go this year. I might be out of the country in that time frame too. So yeah, just not the right time.
The date change really thrashed it for me.
Yeah, same.
And I know that that's true for some people also, but I'm sure that there's also people who are like, "Oh, sweet, I can make Maryland Mayhem for the first time because it's not in April or whatever."
But you could have had so many fun zombie themes if they had kept the Easter time.
Yeah, right. I suppose, yes. It is the ultimate zombie story. Easter story.
Or is it a lich? It could be that.
I've seen that conversation. I've seen that conversation had. Yes. I'm not sure. Foam Invaders. This is a really interesting one. It's a collaboration between Nerf Singapore and TNT events. It's a comp tourney in Singapore.
I'm looking forward to the footage at least.
Yes, it's a bit rich for my blood to get over there. Unfortunately,
one day.
One day. FNC goes to Singapore someday.
Yeah. Survival Fest. I've been trying to go to it since they started doing it. This might actually. I'm literally looking at my calendar again right now. This might actually be the year because I think that date block is still empty. They've been.
I'll have to make it at least one day. No. It's an hour down the road.
It overlaps one day of work for me again. I don't know. Maybe I'll go for a day.
Well, it depends. Maybe which day it overlaps. If you want to,
It is the last day, but like I don't know. I'm getting old, man. Like, I don't know if I go for like 2 days of HVZ and then come back and jump right into work and don't get a break for a week. I don't know. We'll see. Armageddon, SoCal.
Tempting, but yeah, that's once we get to summer, it's probably going to get reserved for wife and I doing some kind of vacation. So
a vacation to SoCal, perhaps.
I'm not sure that's gonna fly.
That's a little closer to you, Vile.
Yeah, that's not too bad. Actually, was that Armageddon in... Where does it actually take place in SoCal? I can't remember. Do we remember was it like LA, greater LA region? Like, because I don't think it was as close to San Diego.
I can't remember. I am looking it up. I'm getting it open.
I'm looking at the site, and all that I see is Geddon 2025 and SoCal.
Complex. Was this one? Yeah, this one's greater LA. This was like one of their locations was like Huntington Beach-ish.
Yeah, okay.
So they're not at the same location, but that's the area that it is.
Yep.
I don't know what's going on in June though. Late June.
Yeah, very late June. End War just announced dates. July 18th to 20th.
Yeah.
In North Carolina. I have not been to End War yet.
End War's always fun, and I've heard good things from the last one as far as the whole structure of the game itself. So
yeah. Foam Fest in the UK. We're going to have Big Al, one of the big organizers of that, on in a couple episodes to talk about the UK nerfing scene and that event. Another one I'd love to travel to internationally, but dollars and time.
I have to look at how far Lancaster is from where Teacup's living.
Oh, that's right. You'll be over there at some point.
I could. Well, I would already be over there. Obviously, April, May, but because it's late July, that might be a little close just to have another trip to the UK.
Right.
But I am curious where it is, because if it's not that far, she might be there for another year, and I might be able to make it. Maybe not this year, but possibly next year, which would be kind of interesting. That'd be cool.
Have you traveled internationally for Nerf, Buff?
Specifically for Nerf, no. I'm assuming we're
ignoring overseas.
Yeah, let's ignore driving across the northern border. That's when you're in the Midwest, that's just another place to go. Yep. But going overseas specifically for Nerf, no. I've visited Nerf related things, like when my wife and I went to the UK, we stopped in the Action Experience thing just because it was there.
Yep.
And we were going to be passing through by train, so why not stop over and take a peek? But not for an actual game league.
Yeah. Mob Mutation Madness. I haven't seen anything about it yet. When is it usually?
It's usually the 3rd or 4th weekend of October. It's still up in the air, but I know they are talking with the mall owner. They want to do it. It's just figuring out the best.
Yeah. Best time.
But I'm like 95% confident we will have it this year. So
cool. Ragfest also, it's around the same time all the time. I'm sure it'll happen. But,
I think if that part of the deal is probably to try to avoid being the same weekend as Ragfest, but know.
I really enjoyed casting at Ragfest last year. I hope I can make that happen again.
Ragfest is the only event this year that it looks like, fingers crossed, maybe there's a possibility Grimm's goes to another Nerf event for once in a year again.
Yes.
We're breaking the every 2-year streak. We're breaking the 2-year streak potentially and actually showing up another year. I really enjoyed Ragfest last year.
Ragfest is our best opportunity to get all 3 of us together.
Mm-hmm.
So I think if possible, we should try to make that happen.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Is there anything else I'm forgetting?
I mean, there's gonna be stuff like APOC's gonna happen at the one paintball field.
Yes,
the paintball field in New Jersey that they hold it at now.
Yeah. That's definitely something that goes on here.
The major events. That's all I can think of for now.
The only other thing I can think of is I don't know if it came back the last year, but I remember Hell Before Halloween came back in like
Canadians were using it as a camping and Nerf. Yep, they'll probably do that again this year.
Oh, yeah. Midsummer.
Yeah. all the old school HBZ / hangout stuff up in upstate New York. And we missed this only because it just got announced. But Purdue, their club is having Boiler Dome again, so they're gonna have Friday HBZ, Saturday do the territories type gameplay on campus, and then Sunday do Ion Rush.
Nice.
So,
I mean, we do
and
have
that's toward the end of April.
For a hobby of this size, we really do have a thriving event ecosystem.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of wild. I mean, it's very seasonal, obviously, but I mean, we just had Sub-Zero. It's not like there isn't things that's semi-local, but like
it's clearly indoors prominent. Usually.
Yeah, but it's pretty like prominent thing. Like we have stuff pretty
There's
around,
always some release or
stuff.
some event or something going on that you can engage with the community in some facet or at some level. Even if you don't leave your house, there is some way to still interact with the community at large. So much going on all the time. We would know really well.
we would. And to that end, I haven't done anything for this episode, so I'm gonna go to bed.
That sounds like a solid plan.
Yeah, Buffdaddy, thank you so much for coming on. It was really great.
No, thanks for having me. Yeah.
And we should definitely have you back at some point. Especially, I really appreciate your insight on some of these kind of larger questions, and especially.
Why are we here?
It's
one of life's greatest mysteries.
Yeah, 42 or whatever. Where can folks find you and your work?
You can find me at www.blasterhub.com, and chances are, if there is a social media, I probably have something on it, whether it's Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, whatever.
Are you're usually Buffdaddy Nerf on stuff? Well, there's probably a BlasterHub account and a Buffdaddy Nerf account.
I think just about everything is switched over to just BlasterHub at this point. But I mean, if you look through legacy things, like whether it's Nerf Haven or other stuff Nerf related, you'll find Buffdaddy Nerf. Yeah.
See, it was funny because back in the day,
everyone still calls me that, so I still just go with it. Yep.
Back in videos when I was like getting into the hobby, I was like, "Who's this Buffdaddy guy?" And I'd try and search you up and try and find stuff, but I couldn't find anything. And I was like, and then it was eventually I found out BlasterHub was your thing. I was like, "Oh, okay, so that's just like their player nickname. I got it." Okay,
yeah,
cool.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It took me like a year to figure that out.
Yep, and it was always great because, at least for the most part, using a name like Buffdaddy Nerf and you don't have a picture to go with it, so there's relative anonymity. So when they meet you, they're like,
"Oh yeah,
who the hell
sure.
is that?"
I was literally talking to someone about this because I was like, "Oh, I'm script drafting," and they're not in the hobby, and they're like, "Oh yeah, it's one of those production weeks, isn't it?" And they're like, what's your script looking like?" And then I'm like reading it off and they're like, "Wait, Buffdaddy?" I was like, "Oh yeah." They appear all the time and they're like, "And you have to read that with a straight face every time." I was like, "Yes."
As if we didn't go through Bruce Lidl,
or like
20
Bruce Lidl's cubed Lee, or Bruce Lidl to the power of 10,
Lidl
or
dynamics
like,
every time.
Yeah.
What you get. Yeah.
This is our hobby, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah. Anyone else got anything to say? File streaming.
Yep.
Grims, what's up?
Doing my my stream Friday, Saturday, and getting my Merge Masters build hopefully finished up.
Hell yeah.
Get it finished so you can start another one in another category.
Oh God,
That's right.
Yeah. Like I have that kind of time. Who's got that kind of time?
Only apparently Prickly.
Yeah, apparently.
Yeah, it seems like it.
Yeah, he's trying to fit all three categories, which is crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I guess that's it. Like I said, I gotta edit some scripts and go to bed. Maybe not even the first part. We'll see how I'm feeling when we end the call. Thanks again for coming on, Buff. Thank you everybody for listening. Thank you for supporting us in every way that you do. We will be back in 2 weeks with another episode of the news, as well as another podcast episode. See y'all later.
Have a good one.
Later.
Everybody has to get in their goofy goodbye sound at the end of every episode.
We have to.
I've noticed that.
It's normal.
It seems to be a tradition.
Oh!